but I do like them all. I got to say, especially the
Yeah,
writing.
yeah, no, that's for sure. I'm assuming you've probably read Meditations.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, several
Yeah.
times.
One of the, I guess, like funnier like criticisms of Meditations tends to be that it's too repetitive, right?
Yeah,
But obviously, it's like it wasn't really meant to be published as a book. It's just a journal. So obviously, the day-to-day life you live tends to be sometimes repetitive, right? So it's kind of like he's just writing, I guess, in a way, he's talking about his life, right? But he's also kind of reminding himself to stay on the path, right?
yes. Well, that's the thing is, and you're absolutely right. It was a journal. It wasn't supposed to be a book. And so if you can imagine whoever you are listening to this, if you're an individual, you have things that you struggle with, some tendencies that you struggle with. Maybe you tend to sleep in a little bit too late. Maybe you tend to grab your phone too much. And if you're trying to fight those bad habits, what you have to do is you have to remind yourself to fix those bad habits every day. And so if
Yeah,
you were to write a journal, you would probably bring up every day, okay, this is something I struggle with. Remind myself not to grab my phone every 5 seconds. And it's probably something that you're going to be very repetitive about because you're trying to drill in that habit. And so Marcus Aurelius was just a person at the end of the day. And that's exactly what he was doing in that journal. It's like he had tendencies just like the rest of us do, and he's trying to remind himself so he can drill in these habits and this virtue. And that does end up being repetitive as a reader, but to me, it points to the humane element of Marcus Aurelius. Like he was an actual person. He wasn't this god, this sage.
yeah,
He was a person that struggled with things, and I kind of like that, to be honest.
yeah. I feel like that's a lot more like even though he was a king, right? It makes him a lot more relatable, right?
Yeah.
Like if you read like his life story, like he went through suffering just like anyone else. Like he lost, if I'm not mistaken, his wife at some point, his kids, right? Obviously, like at that time, he was fighting the Germanic tribes, right? And like, he was losing soldiers left and right. So, had to deal with a lot of problems. Because like, thing is, I think a lot of people will see a king and they will think that automatically this individual is spoiled. But the thing is, when you are a king, there's also a lot of like burden of responsibility on you. And
Right.
one of the ways that when you read his life, it's like it kind of shows like how like a proper king should lead things in his life.
Yeah. No, I think he's a model for everyone, for all of us in our
Yeah,
lives. And as we if we're living such a life where we gain responsibility as we go through it and we move up in life, maybe at your job or whatever it is, just try and be humble. Try and remind yourself that you're just a person and you're struggling with things as well. And that really we're all gonna die at the end of the day. That's another thing about meditations
yeah,
and stoicism. It's like this humbling aspect of meditating on your death on a regular basis, not to get depressed, but to put things into perspective, right? That we are
yeah,
mortal, that we are going to die, and that at the end of the day, sure, I might, I don't know, make more money than you or have a higher position than you or whatever. But at the end of the day, we're all going to go to the same place, and that's 6 feet
yeah,
under. It's a very humbling idea.
sure. Yeah. One thing I do want to like we did talk about it. Like he did journal. So do you personally journal? And if so, like do you see like a benefit from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I journal less since I started the Strong Stoic podcast because most of my journaling now goes into the podcast episodes. So
Okay.
that's sort of the way that I deal with a lot of my thoughts. But yeah, I still journal if it's something that's maybe deeply personal. I'll still journal, and I actually I like physically writing, like the
Okay. Yeah.
process of it is really fun. But yeah, there's just so many benefits to journaling. The best way I like to explain it is your head is kind of like this compilation of random thoughts bumping all around. It's really chaotic. There's just so many random thoughts clinging on to. If you sit down and meditate for a bit and try and still your mind, you'll find just these random thoughts coming in all the time.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to make sense of that. But what journaling allows you to do, and writing in general, speech, all these things, this is really what logos is it allows you to take that stuff and try and like organize it and put a structure to it so that you can understand it. And so I would say that journaling is the way, the best way that you can actually reflect upon yourself and find out who you are, who you actually are, but also where you want to go and also how to get there. So I think it's unbelievably valuable. I think it's crucial in the philosopher's journey. I don't think you can really be on the road of self-improvement without some form of journaling or reflection or something like that.
for sure. So obviously you don't have to go into too much detail, but like what do you generally journal about?
Sure, yeah, no. I tend to for me it's like I get a question. I'm curious about something and I just want to explore it a little bit deeper. And that's really
Yeah,
the start of it. So, a lot of people tell me, people I mentor and stuff, they'll say, I don't know how to start journaling. And
yeah,
it's like, it doesn't really matter. You just have to start writing,
yeah,
right? But people don't like that answer sometimes. So I'll say, okay, we'll do it like this. Start with a question. And you don't have to write the question down if you don't want to, if you think that's cheesy or corny. But start with a question in your mind, like, I don't know, maybe your friend said something to you and you're really upset about it for some reason. Why are you upset about that? And then you can just start writing. You can start explaining the experience, and then you can go into the details of why. And what's going to happen is you're going to actually organize those thoughts. So, like, don't think of journaling as you know the answer and you're putting it on paper. It's like the process by which you find the answer. And so it's okay to not know what you want to write about before
yeah,
you start writing. Just start writing. And so that's kind of what I do. It's I start with a question. It could be anything, something that's bothering me. Maybe I felt bitter or resentful or something. I felt angry about something. It's like, why did I feel that way? And I just start writing, and I normally find the answer. Sometimes it takes a couple sessions, writing sessions, but normally I find the answer. So that's the benefit of it.
I actually like that because funny. I also journal as well, but like I can relate to that as well because whenever something is bothering me, I do tend to like write it out and like through that eventually it's kind of like a release of your thoughts because it's just they're stuck in your head so much. But when you kind of like write it down, it's like okay now they're out and I know like now you see it from like I guess a third person perspective because now you're looking at your thoughts rather than just in your head and it's from first person.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: Do you ever feel like a reluctance to write something down?
A reluctance.
So I hear, maybe let me explain that a little bit better. I hear a lot of people that come to me and they say they there's something that they're embarrassed about or something, and they don't want to write it down. They have a fear in the back of their head that someone's going to come and read it or something, right?
Oh, I wouldn't say that per se, but if anything, yeah, I would say that the reason I write because at least like I know that at least like I have enough insurance reassurance that I don't think anyone's gonna like read my journal per se.
Yeah.
But it would be more so like this is like at the end of the day, it's like I like to write about it because I know not no one's really gonna read it. At least like maybe like if they discover it like in a million years maybe, right? But I'll be long gone by then. So it's like I like writing about it, like about my inner thoughts that nobody will necessarily know about. So I guess if that answers your question.
Yeah. No, that's the way to do it, man. I always tell people I have a couple rules when it comes to journaling, and one of them is never if there's a little voice in your head telling you not to put something down for some reason,
Yeah,
that's not a good read. Just write it down. Assume no one's
yeah,
ever going to read it, even yourself. Assume
yeah,
that. And then because if there's a lot of things that we feel that we're not proud of, and maybe that's why we're
yeah,
journaling about it. Again, like sometimes personally, I'll get angry at something, and it's like, what? Why am I feeling that way? What's the cause of that? What's the source of that? And I mean, a lot of times, that's not something I'm proud of, but
yeah.
if you write it down, you can learn from it, and then you can stop it from happening in the future. And so it's actually a form of redemption that you can fix yourself knowing your insufficiencies, despite the fact that you just failed. You can redeem
Yeah.
yourself by improving.
That was 100% true. Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that because if you want to look back on what you wrote, you can, but it's kind of like, the main reason we study history is so that we try not to repeat the mistakes that we made in the past. And you can do that with yourself too, at like a smaller scale of a level.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Sometimes I read back some of the stuff I wrote years ago. Doesn't even seem like me. It's
Yeah,
like a completely different person.
yeah, no, that's for sure.